Well, I'm glad you're here today because today is Isaiah chapter 27. This has some really interesting themes and concepts for us to learn in it that's going to help us a lot in our day and age. Now, this is still part of the chapters of Isaiah that are dealing with his seership, looking forward into the future, basically. So this is more about the last days, what is going to happen. And I would say this chapter is in process right now of being fulfilled, as well as is showing us our near future of what we can expect here in the near future also. Let's get into this with verse 1. In that day, so usually in that day, last days, the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan. The Hebrew, this word says sore, the Hebrew word can mean hard. So hard and great and strong sore. So he's not sore from tired from fighting. He has a sword that is unstoppable, basically. And he says, he shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. This is some really cool symbology that we have here, understanding Leviathan, this great beast that the Lord will basically contend with. Now we know if we look in the footnotes here that there's a correlation to this, a connection to Revelations 12, 1 through 17 in the Joseph Smith translation. Because in the Bible, in the New Testament, in Revelations, we hear of Satan being referred to as a dragon. And this is Leviathan's being called the dragon that is in the sea. So there's a connection in the symbology here. Also with this, it's important for us to understand too, when we think of these ancient times, okay, they had the Mediterranean Sea that they used. There's, the Black Sea wasn't super far away either. Some of these other inland seas, they had the Gulf. We would call it the Persian Gulf today, kind of south end of Egypt against Saudi Arabia and things. They had seas. Mediterranean was probably the bigger one for commerce and things as well. Not as much international sea travel like what we would have today, but more local sea travel around that area for what we'd call northern Africa, the Middle East, and southern Europe. But here's the thing to think about, though, okay? When we talk about boats, we're talking about boats that are traveling at a week at a time or so. They're not going across the oceans. They're going from port to port, a couple days in between. But they didn't have back then the capabilities of understanding what's in the ocean. They know there's fish there. They know there's all kinds of wildlife there. But they can't see to the bottom. They don't have submarines. They don't have these diving abilities to go down deep. They don't have satellites that can measure and track the sea floor and give you depths and ideas of what's there and things. So to them, it's an unknown. It is this representation of chaos. They just know on the surface, wind and waves kick up and they seem to be somewhat random. There are some patterns, but then you have your sneaker waves and other things that kind of throw a wrench in it. So there's a lot of chaos with the sea. And so that's something that's important, I think, that's coming out with this. The symbology here of Leviathan, the great dragon in the sea, is he will be slain. He is a representation of the chaos, the unknown that we can't deal with, basically. But God is going to come take care of the chaos, the unknown of what's happening, as well as literally, if we look at this as Satan as a dragon, Christ will come to slay the dragon to get rid of sin and wickedness out of the world, which is what Satan thrives on. So he will take care of Satan for us, basically, and get him out. So a lot of metaphor in there as well. One thing that's interesting about this idea of Leviathan is there is a group of people in northern Syria, the ugarites, I think is how you probably pronounce it. They lived up there. They disappeared probably around 1200 BC, so a lot longer than, Isaiah's, we're talking 750 BC for Isaiah, so these guys lived a lot longer, many, many centuries before Isaiah did. A lot of scholars think they probably died from internal conflict, but they don't really know what happened to them. But in their text, the ugaritic texts, we find, and this is Dan McClellan in one of his YouTube videos was talking about this. He said that this reference is also found in the ugaritic text. Whether they come from a similar source or are quoting each other is still being debated. So we don't know if Isaiah got this from the ugaritic texts that were around before him, and we don't know if maybe the Ugarites got it from another text that Isaiah is getting it from the same text they got it from. Could Isaiah be quoting them, or could they both be quoting a third source that we don't know about? There's not enough information to rule which theory is the correct one, but it is there. So it's important for us to look at that. This is not just something that Isaiah came up with. This is something that has been around for a long time. This concept of the great sea monster, Leviathan, those kinds of things is common enough that it wouldn't surprise people in Isaiah's day to have this prophecy go, oh, I'm starting to understand that metaphor, that analogy, basically. So let's jump forward here and keep moving on with verse 2. In that day, so again in the last days, sing ye unto her a vineyard of red wine. So this is a hymn that we should be singing in the last days. Not literally singing in the last days, but conceptually, this is a praise to God that we should be really considering. It says, verse 3, I, the Lord, do keep it. I will water it every moment. So this is his vineyards. Think of Jacob chapter 5. Lest any hurt it, I will keep it night and day. Fury is not in me. Who would set the briars and thorns against me in battle? I would go through them, I would burn them together. Or let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me. So I'm just going to pause for a second here in this hymn. We're about halfway through the hymn. This is a really great metaphor, great idea to think about with the last days and things that are happening. So the thing to realize about this is we talk about this Leviathan, this monster, and then we're getting into this hymn of praise of God. He is protecting his vineyard. He is defending it. He is making sure that the people are safe, his fruit of his efforts, those kinds of things. So really, if you think about this story, it's basically talking about the world will be in sin and wickedness, which means contention and war. So lots of tumult, lots of chaos, lots of things going on in the world. The world's just going to get more and more wicked, more and more angry, more and more contention, which does mean, especially from the wisdom of Isaiah, or not Isaiah, Enoch, that the earth responds to, in Enoch's great prophecy, the earth responds to the wickedness of the people. So the more wicked the people are, the more the elements go into commotion. So natural disasters will increase and arise as wars and contentions get worse and worse as well. And this is the last days, basically. This is a symbol and prophecy of what is to come. Now, I would say we are not there yet. We are not into the full chaos and commotion yet. It's got a lot more to go. We've got a lot more worse conditions to get to. We need to get to a point, this might be scary to think about, but we need to get to a point, according to lots of other scripture, where in order for Christ to come and take over as king of the world, the kingdoms that currently exist have to go away. I mean, Christ isn't coming to a world that is full of nations and countries and going, guess what, guys, I'm taking over everybody. Because the leaders of those nations would say, no, you're not taking over. We are not giving up our power. And there's a setup for contention. So when Christ comes, the people need to be disorganized, which means the governments go away, which means he can come in and go, come follow me. I will be your king. I'll take care of it. I'll help you out. So for his people, that'll be a good thing. For people who are wicked, they're not going to be so happy he's there. But through wars and contentions and disasters, nations will crumble, and basically federal government will go away. Those kinds of government levels will be destroyed and go away, which means a lot of mobocracy, a lot of tribalism and other things happening as well. So a lot of chaos coming. But here's the beauty of this, as he talked about in verse 5 and moving on from there in here. He says, God will work with his people. Okay, this is verse 4. He's going to work with his people, not verse 4, but verse 3 as well. He's going to nourish it. He's going to water it, take care of his vineyard. Okay, then he says, the problem is, though, is as he's taking care of it, the people are not going to listen. Some will, but some won't. But here's the beauty. This is coming down to the great decision that we all have to make. Are we going to follow God, or are we going to follow the world? Okay, Abraham 3:25, basically. Because he's going to set up the conditions to force us to have to make a choice. The world's going to get worse. People are going to make that choice to go the world way, which is wars and contentions and anger and hatred and things. Then there's the choice to become righteous, the choice to follow Christ and go his way. And he is going to publish his peace. This is missionary work, to share peace. Verse 5 talked about that a little bit, about make peace with me. He should make peace with me. Take hold of my strength. Let me help you in your life. Let me help you out of the craziness and the chaos and have peace in your life through me. That's his message basically to us. And so that is we're going to see this division of the people basically. Some are going to follow Christ, some are not going to follow Christ. That's what's going on. So then we have, as a separation, destruction. Those who didn't get destroyed, those who did will survive the best, basically. So that's really this whole chapter just summarized up. So let's continue to read to understand how this unfolds in the metaphor and symbology that Isaiah is using. So verse 6, he shall cause them that come of Jacob to take root. So those that come of Jacob, those are the ones that are becoming Israel. These are the chosen people, the followers of Christ. They get baptized, they do the ordinance work, they keep his commandments, pray, read scriptures, give service, those kinds of things. That is Israel, okay? They will take root. Now, if they take root, that means they will be established. So this could be a symbol of course, the restoration of the gospel in the last days. It wasn't there. The vineyard was destroyed, and now it has come back, and it is established. Continuing on with verse 6, Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit. So this is really a great thing to think about now, because again, we've talked about Jacob chapter 5, the allegory of the olive tree, the vineyard. This symbology is being used in Isaiah 27. So there's a lot of correlation between Isaiah 27 and Jacob chapter 5, as well as Isaiah 27 and Revelations 12. There's a lot of symbology that kind of binds all these philosophies and concepts of the gospel together. But if Israel is blossoming and budding, that means new life, new growth, progress is being made. So more and more people are following the gospel. The gospel is starting to thrive and to grow and to emerge. And it will fill the face of the world with fruit. What is the fruit of the gospel? Righteousness, peace, happiness. So it will eventually spread and do more. So again, those who are righteous will feel and enjoy the fruit. Those who reject that fruit will be destroyed, the wickedness, basically. So verse 7, hath he smitten him as he smote those that smote him? Or is he slain according to the slaughter of them that are slain by him? So as we look at the new Revised Standard Edition of the Bible to get a little bit of a different perspective on verse 7, it says, has he struck them down as he struck down those who struck them? So this isn't necessarily God just killing people. This is God saying the people who struck down people, the killers, will be killed, basically. So justice is done. And continue on, or have they been killed as their killers were killed? So again, that's more about justice is going to be happening. The wicked will destroy the wicked. basically. God is going to use the wicked to kill the wicked. And that's one way he will eliminate the wicked from the earth, basically, is let them kill themselves off. That's basically what that is. So hopefully that helps you clarify verse 7 a little bit. It's a little confusing. Now, verse 8, in measure, when it shooteth forth, so this is maturing. So buds are growth, new life, producing fruit. Shooteth forth is growth. The branches are maturing, basically. Thou wilt debate with it. He stayeth his rough wind in the day of the east wind. By this, therefore, shall the iniquity of Jacob be purged, and this is all the fruit, and this is all the fruit to take away his sin. When he maketh all the stones of the altar as chalk stones that are beaten in sunder, the groves and images shall not stand up. So verse 9 is about cleansing Israel, cleansing the people. The iniquity of Jacob be purged. Now, what is the iniquity of Jacob? We know it talks about it in the rest of this verse. Maketh the stones of the altar as chalk stones that are beaten in sunder. So the stones they pile up to make an altar to a false god will be destroyed. The groves is talking, of course, about fertility worship, Astaroth, and those types of things that we see quite a bit through the Old Testament. And images, idols, shall not stand up. So this is idolatry will be destroyed, which is spiritual adultery, basically. The iniquity shall be purged by the fruit of Jacob. So what is the fruit? Missionary work, helping people come to Christ. As we help others come to Christ, that helps us to improve our standing and opportunities to have the atonement help us in our day and age, in our life, not day and age, but in our life. So it's not just believing in Christ that helps us out, but part of the, I guess you could say this is part of the works that is good for us to do, is share the gospel. As we share the gospel and help others find Christ and have their souls cleansed, it cleanses us as well. So this is an important thing. I think it's in the Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about that when you bring one soul to Christ, it can cover a myriad of sin in yourself. So sharing the gospel, helping promote the gospel, teaching people the gospel is a way to help you improve your ability to have the atonement work in your life. In a way, this is part of that works type of idea that we are talking about with salvation. Not that our works save us, but our works help us to improve that ability to be saved. Now, verse 10, yet the defenced city shall be desolate, and the habitation forsaken, and left like a wilderness. There shall the calf feed, and there shall he lie down and consume the branches thereof. So if the calf is there feeding and lying down and consuming the branches thereof, there's nobody there, for one thing. It's a desolate city. This is Jerusalem, the defenced city. Jerusalem will be destroyed. Jerusalem will be left desolate. Animals will be able to live there and eat the vines and eat the plants and basically exist there because the humans aren't there. Now, verse 11, when the boughs thereof are withered, they shall be broken off. The women come and set them on fire, for it is a people of no understanding. Therefore he that made them will not have mercy on them, and he that formed them will show them no favor. So again, these are the vines that die. Think of winter and fall season. The vines die off, we prune them back, we cut them out, they are burned, they are destroyed. So destruction of the wicked is part of this is going to happen. So if you think about this, we're kind of describing the pride cycle to an extent in this chapter. Verse 12, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt, and ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel. So this is harvest. Again, the fall season. So the wicked are going to be destroyed. The harvest is going to be preserved, gathered and preserved. So salvation and redemption, basically. That's the atonement of Christ. Now, verse 13, and it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt, and shall worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem. So we talk about separation from the world. So this idea of Egypt and Assyria are metaphors for the world, and we leave the world and go to Jerusalem, not just to Jerusalem, but to the temple of God in Jerusalem. So leave the world and come to God. The temple is so important to the work of salvation, to helping us out. And we hear this a lot in the Old Testament. Go to the temple. The temple is the place of safety. So when we hear stand in holy places, this is why. As the world gets more wicked, as we've talked about in this chapter, as there's more commotion, more challenges that are happening, God is going to promote his gospel of peace to the people. As we promote that gospel of peace, we will have righteous and wickedness move away from each other. Eventually, we get to a polarization, and the wicked are then destroyed. The righteous is preserved. They are saved from this destruction if they stand in holy places, and the temple is that place. So a lot of people in our modern world think of the temple requirements as burdensome, as not like, why do I need to have all these rules, regulations, and things? Let's face it. Here's the thing. I don't know of a non-member that would go to a temple. Let's say the church opened up the temples and said anybody could go through the temple. Anybody could go through the temple. But you've got to do the same rituals, same things you've done all before. But anybody, even non-members, can go through the temple and experience that. Everybody would go through it once, just because it would be a novel thing. After that, they'd say, I'm never doing that again. That was a horrible experience. I'd rather go watch a terrible movie at the theater than go through that temple again. I don't want to have to sit there. I don't want to have to raise my hands. I don't want to have to pray to God. I don't want to have to make these promises and things. I don't want to have to do all this stuff. This would, like, no one, let's face it, if they open up the temples, who would really go on their own free will to do that kind of work, that kind of stuff? They would see it as burdensome and not worth it and never go back again. So this is an important point, though, because the temple isn't about keeping people out. The temple is about sifting, helping those who want to follow Christ have a way they can. The only reason people go to the temple is because they want to go to the temple. There is no requirement to have to go. There's no compelling. There's nothing like that. People go because they want to go. That's the only reason. There is no other reason to go to the temple other than you want to go because of intrinsic value to you. I want to go for my own personal reasons. There's no external value to it. It's not like you're put in a lottery. It's not like you can go play bingo and you get a gift or anything by showing up. It's an intrinsic value you get from going to the temple. So the restrictions, or, well, I shouldn't say restrictions actually. I would probably more phrase it the guidelines, the rules to follow to get a temple recommended to be temple worthy, is a way to sift who is willing to follow God, who's going to leave the world and follow God, and who's not. So it's purifying us. It is preparing us for a celestial sphere, basically. And so those who stand in holy places, those who go to the temple, are the ones that will be best prepared to deal with the commotions, the craziness that is coming in our world, basically. So that is the message I hope you get from Isaiah 27. That how appropriate this is to our day and age and our world. Truly, Isaiah was a seer, and he saw what was going to happen in our day and age. And he's giving us advice to help us today. This is real world advice for our time now and our future as well. So I hope you're enjoying this. Looking forward to reading your comments about this chapter, what you've learned from it as well in the comments. And let's jump over to the next chapter to continue to learn more about our day and age from Isaiah.